Welcome to the Y. Here comes Kay. Liska's here. Lisa's here. And today we're talking all about planning. What a good time of the year to be talking about planning. Anybody got any plans? Anyone? Anywhere? Plans? Yeah, there's some strategic plans being developed at the moment. And not far behind that, there'll probably be some operational plans being developed, I would say. We always like to know that there's risk plans being developed somewhere. And lately, we've been hearing a lot about workforce development plans because the workforce has become a bit the new black, hasn't it? The workforce, how are the workforce? How are they going? How will they go? How will they get there? Will they get there? Will they come back? All these questions and more about the workforce, isn't it? So, having a good workforce plan that is driving capability around achieving all of those organisational goals has been pretty key for lots of organisations recently as well. And if that can be aligned to a capability framework, well, you are kicking goals, kicking goals. So, we're talking a lot today about alignment. Now, how do you feel when you're not aligned? Does anybody ever get out of alignment in their body? Oh, it doesn't feel good, and it starts to push other parts of your body out of position, out of whack, So, alignment between the plans is what we're talking about today. So, thank you very much for joining us if you're in the Zoom room. Lovely if you're on the wire with us, and lovely if you're watching this recording. Today, we would like to firstly acknowledge all the beautiful lands that we are on. And I think today I might be on Dungutty. Dungutty. I like to say that because I'm in beautiful Southwest Rocks. So that I might be on Dungutty country today. And wherever you are on the lands that you are on, we welcome you and we acknowledge the elders, past, present, emerging, and the diversity of Aboriginal cultures across this beautiful, beautiful country. And so if you would like to acknowledge the country that you're on, you can do that quietly, or you can do it by putting it on your name on your video square. You do that, rename yourself, right click, rename yourself. You can do that, or you can just type it into the chat, or you can just have a quiet moment to recognise that connection that you have with those First Nations traditional custodians. All right, today we will have a look at the planning standards. Standards, there's two. Oh, I tricked you already, didn't I? There's the strategic planning standard. And of course, then there's the business planning standard. So we're going to have a look at the indicators under each of those. We'll be having a look at how we might get ready to plan, because that's where it's at, I think. Sort of like planning to plan. Are there any good sayings about planning that you've heard of in your career? I've heard a few about planning and the impact of planning. I had a look at a Simon Sinek talk recently, and he was talking about
What's
planning.
That? If you don't plan, you plan to fail.
That's it. Fail to plan, plan to fail. That's a good one. Any others? What about the 5 Ps of planning? Does anybody know that one? Proper planning prevents poor performance. You can have 6 Ps, but you have to say a rude word. So I'm a lady, so I won't be saying that. And Simon Sinek was saying in his little talk today, and he was really talking about the difference between planning in the corporate sector and planning in the military, because he is a military boy. He's from the Air Force. And he was saying that they have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of plans in the military, and hardly any of them will get implemented, but they have lots and lots of plans. But they see planning as a process more than an event. And some organisations that I have visited do see planning as an event rather than a process. So when we unpack the standards, Keep that in your mind, because when we unpack the standards, all those indicators, you will actually see them presented as a process, not just a once a year or 3 or 5 year event, but a process. So I thought that was a helpful little message, because planning is a process. It's not an event. We're going to do planning, some people say. We're having our planning on that day next month, It's like, oh, okay. What about the doing bit? When does that happen? So let's kick on. Let's kick on. I've got some things to show you today, and to show our friends at home. The first big question I'm asking everyone is, what sort of plans? What sort of plans? We're going to see if we can list 10 types of plans. 10 different plans. Why don't we see how many we can get? Let's go. Now, if you know how to annotate on the screen, you can have a go at annotating on the screen. Your annotate is in your tab. You should have a tab at the top of your screen that says you are viewing Marie Davidson's screen. Here goes Lisa. And in there, in the view options tab, just beside it, you will see the annotate function. That gives you a drawing toolbar, and also a text toolbar, which Lisa is about to see if she can instead of scribbling like a 3-year-old, which is pretty great on there. Oh no. The towel that I put over the car to reduce the amount of light on my head is blowing off. But anyway, fun and games in the car when we're camping. Strategic plan, very good. If you can't find your annotate function, you can just put it into chat and we shall capture it. But yeah, annotate's a fun little thing. There we go. Lisa's off and running. I'm going to put one on there. I'm putting this one on that I already spoke about. Is that a snap? Doesn't matter, I can fix that. Workforce plan. The operations plan. Fantastic. What else can we get on there? That's 3. Let's see if we get 10. Better. Oh, don't worry, I can fix that. There we go. We just move that down there. Thank you, Kay. Excellent. Think about, we're drilling down, we're drilling down. What else have we got there? Would you consider a budget to be a plan? Definitely the asset management plan, fantastic. We have got lots of COVID safety plans around. Good. Good. The COVID safety plan we might see as being part of the business continuity plan, isn't it? It's quite a specific business continuity approach. The workforce or the recruitment plan, fantastic. Yes, the communications plan. That was one I had down. What did I have on my special little list here? I had got my new notebook. It's always exciting when you get a new notebook, isn't it? Ooh, it feels like, I'm making plans. I'm setting goals with my new notebook. I had marketing communications plan, but I think you got that one, Lisa. You beat me to it. Is that 10? How many is that? Ooh, what about the plans that you might work to? If you were a staff member, what sort of plans might you work to if you're a staff member? I have got a community engagement plan on my list. That's the only one that you haven't gotten so far. And here's another one. What about a project plan? Project plans are good things to have, aren't they? That could be like an improvement plan or something like that. Individual work plans, that's the one. That's the one. And there's also professional development plans as well, which is a pretty important part of the HR standard. So we should put PD plans on there as well. Someone type that on there for me. That would be great. Oh, look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Blown it out of the park. Blown it out of the park. Thank you, team. So these are the plans that are driving our success. Now, shortly, we will have a look at how we should document a planning framework. which would show how these all fit together. Because that would be useful and helpful, wouldn't it, for anyone who was in your organisation, new to your organisation, or helping you with the planning in your organisation. That would be really great for them to know, wouldn't it? Yaha. So a planning framework where it could be a visual on how this is all put together, the interrelationships between these plans. Yeah, because they all sort of support each other, don't they? What we'd like to see is that they can all have a link back to which one. Go and put a stamp or a circle around which one. We'd love to see that all of these plans have a link back to, she got it, the strategic plan. That's what we mean when we talk about alignment. All those plans are giving you the very best chance of success achieving all of those strategic goals. And that's not the highest level guiding document in the land. Usually the strategic plan is helping you to achieve what? What's even higher? Higher than the strategic plan. What's that there? What's out there that you're all working towards? Can I hear anyone say it? All right, I'll say it for you. It's the vision, the mission, isn't it? The purpose of the organisation, the vision, where you're going. What do you exist to do? What do you exist to do? There, you got it. Thank you, Leska, for putting that on there. Exactly. That's usually the highest level guidance in the land, isn't it? The mission of the organisation or the purpose of the organisation. So we won't get there without these plans. Very good. Thank you. Stop annotating. Oh, there we go. If you like to save a picture of that, on your annotate toolbar, you have got a save button, and that will save it to your documents, my documents. Yeah, no, your documents. You know, that place where all your Zoom stuff goes. It'll be in there. All right. 3, 2, 1, here it goes. Okay. Oops. Got to clear all those drawings. There we go. So having a look at the standard, what Lisa and I would like to do for you during this is let you know where we see any risks, where we sometimes see gaps, right? Because we want you to know what it is we sometimes get concerned about, all right? So what we'll do is have a look at the 6 indicators under the strategic planning standard, and then we'll have a look at the 3 indicators under the business planning standard. All right, so we're going to jump into the evidence guide. And firstly, let's have a look at the intent of this standard. The strategic planning is undertaken to define organisational and service development, so the organisation and the services we provide to the community. But the outcome or the intent of the standard, which is really how we're assessing it, is that stakeholders are confident in service development, planning and future directions of the organisation. So what's the key word in there? The key word in there is that there's the confidence part. All right? So sort of implies, doesn't it, that stakeholders would know about the plan, that they may even be involved in developing the plans. And what is it that would give stakeholders confidence? I suppose it's them seeing you deliver on the plans. You know, that those goals are achieved, and that they hear that those goals are being achieved. That's what would give me confidence in you and your plans and your future direction. If I could see evidence that it was being achieved. So
Just
let's
a step back from that though, Marie, is that usually a lot of times when I talk to stakeholders during the stakeholder interview, they are not aware. They're aware of the service delivery, but not necessarily what the strategic goals are of their partner organization. So in order for them to be confident in it, the first step is being aware.
Exactly. So how is it shared and how are they involved in developing it? Perfect. Yes, that's often a gap. That's often a gap. We'll say things like, does the organisation share their strategic plan with you? And these would be a key partner. They'd be a key partner that we'd be interviewing, yes. And most oftentimes they say no. So here we go. There are 6 indicators under the strategic planning standard. The first one is always, always, always very easy to achieve. Organisations usually have tons and tons of evidence around the role and the values of the organisation being identified and communicated. We can see that in many, many documents. So that's why we were talking before about everything coming back to the role, the purpose of the organisation, the mission, the values, those sorts of things there. That's why. That's number one, right? Because it all comes back to that. Number 2 indicator, planning is informed by review processes that identify threats, areas for improvement, opportunities for innovation, potential alliances. Starting to sound like a SWOT analysis, isn't it? We sometimes call this environmental scanning. And as it sounds, it's like putting the goggles on and having a look around at the environment in which you are planning. You know, what is the internal environment? What is the external environment offering up in terms of opportunities and threats? So that's a bit getting ready to plan. So we're going to talk about that soon. All right. This is an area of concern for us often. We would want to see the sort of data or performance analysis or information that's informing the planning. So, you know, we can't be doing planning in a void. We have to have in there with us all the information about the organisation, all the information about the community and the community's needs. You know, what we're there to serve the community. We need to understand the community and its changing needs and profiles. So taking stock of that would be fairly important and showing us how you do that. So we'll talk about that a little bit more. Comments can come at any time. The plan has been developed with key stakeholders. So it says in consultation with. So however you do consultation, it might be inviting them to your planning event. It might be taking account of their feedback in surveys. It might be involving the staff. Okay, so the organisation is looking for a range of perspectives on its plan. The organisation identifies where early intervention and prevention will improve outcomes. So, you know, it's looking at being proactive in its plan, in the planning phase. So it's looking at the ways that it can find out about the environment that it's operating in. It's looking for ways that it can identify where, I know early intervention, it's easily understood, isn't it? It's like getting in early. It's getting in before you start to see emerging issues, probably identifying where you expect to see emerging issues. Can you see the difference? It's almost putting a bit of a predictive lens over what you know about the environment and seeing how you might respond. And unless you're really lifting your head up and having a look outside, you might not see those things unless you're involved with peaks, unless you're involved with research, unless you really got your ear to the ground around, you know, your sector's emerging challenges, you might not be able to plan for that. So usually what we ask organisations there, Lisa might confirm this, is for examples of early intervention. Yeah, and what research did you do to know that that was an issue? What data told you that story, sort of thing? Yeah, most organisations have loads of examples of early intervention included in their planning. I don't really like that list of evidence there, but program evaluation is a good one. You know, we evaluated program X and it started to tell us a story about, you know, Y, and so we implemented Z as a response to that. So we love
Some of
to
the
see,
best Yeah, and some of the best that I've seen have been organizations that have invited their clients or former clients to those planning sessions, and then they get information about they get information what's happening in the community from their other stakeholders as well. But just having that extra voice of either a past client or a current client that they may not be able to see themselves, and that has developed. Particularly, I want to give a shout out to Jenny's Place, because we did them recently, and they had developed programs based on the feedback that they had been getting, but in that formal planning environment, as well as with their stakeholders and informal survey. So it was really good to see those three pieces, that triangulation, my favorite word, of them being able to do that.
Excellent. Wonderful. Good. Yeah, good to share those kinds of things, Lisa, that you see as exemplars. I assessed an organisation last week in Adelaide, and they decided to make some presentations in the afternoon of case studies, or showcase some examples of early intervention projects. And they were very, very proud to present that. So that was a lovely way for us to be able to gather that evidence, and just people talking about their early intervention projects. It's really nice. All right, the next one. The objective, strategies and strategic outcomes have been communicated to stakeholders. So this is really worth going into your organisation, having a good check of this. Just simply asking that question: who do we share our strategic objectives and outcomes with? Right. So who do we tell what it is we're trying to achieve, and do we update them on how we're going with that? What are the ways that we can do that? It might be a part of your website, or if you do newsletters, or if you do regular emails, that you might give people a bit of an update on some of your key goals. And the last one here is a defined process and timeline for reporting and review against the strategic plan. So when it says defined, it sort of implies that it's going to be documented. When the strategic plan, is developed, when it's reviewed, how often is it reviewed, how is it reviewed? And what we expect to see is that the leaders in the organisation, mainly the board and maybe the senior management team, or if you're a small organisation, the coordinator with the chair, maybe, having a look at how you're progressing against those strategic goals. All right, because remember, a plan is just something to deviate from. And certainly in the current environment, we would expect to see organisations changing their strategic plan quite a bit. And we would see that as agility. We would see that as, COVID hit and we knew we couldn't achieve goals 3 and 4. So we got together with our board and we decided to adjust our strategic plan. Like, oh no, you adjusted the strategic plan when it's after it's in print. But it's a plan, it's a direction, but it doesn't mean you can't turn off and have a rest, or turn off and, go down another track. If the environment says this is what we need to do, this is how we need to respond. So don't be so wed to the plan that you can't be adjusting it and you can't be agile around it. There we are. So that's the strategic planning standard. You see, that's a process, isn't it? Rather than an event. What about our business planning standard? And I don't want people to get hung up on this term business planning. I really wish that it might be called operational planning or something like that in the standards, because a business plan to me is something that you might document about how you're going to raise money, spend money, make a profit, all that there. It's kind of got a money angle to it. But an operational plan or an annual action plan is really a better fit, I think, in language for our sector. So don't worry if you haven't got a business plan. Please don't run off and create one. What you need to have is something that annually gives legs to the strategy.
Marie,
Yes.
you may not have a revenue earning component to it, but you would have a revenue spending component, like your budget would hang off your operational plan, would it not?
Oh, yes, it would.
So
And that's,
how are
yes,
you going to spend
definitely.
money?
Yeah, it definitely needs to be resourced. So whatever you call this plan, and Kay is exactly right, it needs to be resourced with things like money and probably leadership. Yeah, and in some cases, equipment and research and learning would be the kinds of resources that need to bring to bear to be able to achieve the plan. So that's really what we mean by operationalizing the strategy, giving legs to the strategic plan. Right, so really putting it into practice. That's why it's good to call it an action plan or something like that. Call it a doing plan. Call it the doing. But whatever you call it, there are not 34 indicators. Look at that, Marie. Oh dear, what a nasty little typo. People are starting to sweat seeing that. There are not 34 indicators. There are 3 indicators. And let's have a look. The outcomes, the standard and the intent are the same as for the strategic planning standard. So let's have a look at just 3 of those indicators. Here we go. See there, an annual cycle of planning underpins implementation of the objectives and actions in the strategic plan. That plan includes resources, milestones, timelines, and the people responsible. So that is important. It's quite explicit. So when we're assessing it, that's pretty much what we need to see. Some way that you are talking about the resources we will need when we are going to achieve X, the people who will be giving some leadership to that that task or that activity. All right, so that's important, that you have a plan that does that at that level of detail. In some small organisations, if you're a small organisation watching, you might decide to have your strategic plan and your annual plan in one document, because good practice would say that you are reviewing your strategic plan at least annually. And so a lot of organisations have, some overarching goals that could even be a one-pager, that strategic plan. If you're a small organisation, a one-pager that talks about your strategic goals, let's say you've got 5. And then under that, for this year, let's say it's 2022 to 2023, these are the operational activities that we're going to undertake in order to start progressing those strategic goals. All right. And so I'm going to show you a sample where there's the strategic and operational plan in one, and even the reporting template in the same document. So that would be something, if you're a small organisation, that the manager or coordinator would use as their work plan, because there's probably only sort of one, strategic or operational lead in the organisation, in a very, very small organisation. So that's possible to do it that way. Could be called the manager's work plan instead of a business plan. That's fine. And the third one is that progress against this plan will be reviewed regularly, including the performance measures and the agreed actions. So there's accountability. And if you're a small or large organisation, that probably should be the board, having a look at how the CEO or how the leadership team are progressing those actions to achieve the strategic goals. You see that alignment. Therefore, we should see the business plan or the annual plan aligned or connected in some way to the strategic plan. And that would be through the wording or through some numbering So we should be able to see, oh yeah, this is a plan at this level, the annual plan level, that is helping to achieve that strategic plan there. You'd be surprised how often there's a disconnect. The strategic plan is seen as a lofty thing, like an annual event, and it's a pretty document, and it's over there, but it doesn't really have a connection with all those other plans in the organisation. So some form of numbering is a great idea. Here, this effort, this little activity here, this effort here is giving some legs to strategic goal number 4. Right, that sort of thing. This project, this little improvement project over here, is connected to strategic goal number 3. Recently, I've been in organisations. This is a really lovely development, that there will be working parties around a particular strategic goal. And the working parties, actually, I think KDVSM has this, and I saw it the other day, last week in Adelaide, in the organisation I was assessing, that they had committees or working groups set up around particular strategic goals. So if a strategic goal was improve our workforce, for example, then they would have an improve our workforce working party. And they would convene, across a year, and maybe members would change each year to give people opportunities. But, people could put their hand up for which strategic working party they wanted to be on. And everyone across the organisation was involved in some way. I think that's really, really excellent. Gives people lots of learning opportunities too. So
It
there
also
we go.
plays into professional development and KPIs. You can flesh out a lot with things like that.
Exactly. All those things where we get, a bit more value out of thinking about how we structure things. So, thinking about, how we bring the plan alive is really what that standard is on about. So getting ready to plan. So Liska, this might be perfect timing for you with your meeting with your governance group, is to bring to bear all the data that you can that tells a story about how the organisation's performing. Profile your community with whatever demographic information you might have access to. And when I mean your community, I mean the community that you serve, not necessarily the suburb you sit in, right? The community that you're there to serve. So have a look at the changing profile of your community, if it's young people or if it's older people or families and children in domestic and family violence crisis. Have a look at the emerging trends there and see if you profile the people who you are planning for and with, right? So those are 2 important things. The other important thing is to look, I always love a SWOT. I think there's nothing wrong with a SWOT unless it's not done properly. And then there's many things wrong with a SWOT. So I'm going to give you a quick and dirty on how to do a SWOT properly. A proper SWOT. All right, a proper SWOT. Here we go. And most people who are listening today will have heard about doing a SWOT and have probably been involved in it. It's a big fat brainstorm. That's what it is, but it's a structured brainstorm, so it should give you some good results to get you ready for planning if you do it properly. All right, let's have a look at my proper SWOT. My proper what? My proper SWOT. Nope, not that one. Here we go. There is a, if you haven't done a SWOT analysis before in your organisation, I've given you a link in the resources to a Australian Government business portal that has a pretty good example of one and a how-to guide. But this is one I like. Now, what we have to remember about SWOT is, and this is the easy bit, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, right? Threats also called risks. But SWOT sounds better than SWOR, so that's why it's threats. But what's important is to remember is the strengths and weaknesses are internal in the organisation. So all the strengths that will be helpful to achieve the objective, or I like to sometimes call them the enablers. I like that word, the enablers inside the organisation, strengths and weaknesses. Important to remember, okay? And the things that could be harmful, I like to call them detractors. You know, they could be weaknesses, but they're in most cases they're detractors, right? So enablers and detractors are another way to sort of get people thinking on what are our strengths and weaknesses internally. The O and the T, opportunities and threats, are external in their origin, right? Because the opportunities and threats generally come from the outside, don't they? All right. So we're forcing ourselves in this analysis to lift up our heads and have a look at the external environment. Now, one way that I like to do this, stay with me, is to bring out the pestle. Now, when you're thinking about opportunities and threats, what I'd like you to do is put the pestle lens over the opportunities and threats. So ask yourself this question. PESTLE stands for these things here. We've got political, economic, social, technology, legal, and environment. Right? Could be about sustainability, could be about, you know, the environment in which we're working, the physical environment. But what it forces you to do is really think broadly about the external environment. So you're saying to yourself, politically, where are our opportunities and where are the risks or the threats? Right, change of government, so there's lots of opportunities and there's lots of risk. Okay, so economically, money story, where are our opportunities and where are our risks? We've got re-tendering, recontracting, recommissioning, all sorts of big tenders in the mix at the moment in our sector. Right, so the money story is like, wow, but also like, ooh, are we ready? So where are our opportunities for the money and where are our risks around the money? Social mostly means about the people. So where are our opportunities around the people? Well, you know, there's been a bit of COVID money around for workforce development. You know, there's a bit of a focus on workforce development at the moment in the sector. So, you know, that's a sort of opportunity there. But there could be a risk because there's a lot of people, you know, with COVID, that frontline people, difficulty coming back to the workplace, that sort of stuff there is a challenge. So all the people story there, opportunities and threats around our people. Technology, opportunities and threats around technology. Legal, legislative, the legal and regulatory environment. Oh, goodness me. Doesn't that throw a lot of curlies into the mix when it comes to planning? So the legal opportunities and the legal threats. Worth having a good discussion about that and having probably some expertise at the table for that discussion. And the second E is for our environment. So think about the physical environment and environmental sustainability. So really what I'm doing is I'm running the pestle over the opportunities and threats in my SWOT. Okay. And what you're going to come out with is a page with a lot of excellent things on it, right? A big brainstorm. Never ever do a SWOT analysis on your own. That's sad. And you won't get all the perspectives that you want, right? So that's a bit pointless exercise to do a SWOT on your own, unless it's about your own personal goals, in which case go for it. But otherwise, many people at the table. And do many SWOTs, right? You won't just do one SWOT. You might get that group to do a SWOT and that group to do a SWOT, so on and so forth, right? So you'll end up with a lot of things in each of these boxes. Now, what are you going to do with them? You don't just take that there and then just shove it into your publication of your strategic plan or roll up the bit of poster paper and go, oh, wasn't that good? We're going to do a very specific thing with each of those boxes in our plan. All right, so think about now you're documenting your strategic plan or your business plan. What are you going to do with the strengths box? Leverage. All right, so I'm getting my annotate out and I'm going to put the word there. I want you to do with this. All the things in here, you are going to leverage those strengths because they are going to be the things that are going to enable you in these other kind of quadrants here. All right, so we leverage our strength, you know, we make sure that we're taking all our strengths forward with us in the plan. Weaknesses, what are we going to do with our weaknesses? We're going to develop our weaknesses. So in the plan, there will be a whole heap of actions around how we have identified, how we are going to develop each of those weaknesses that we've found. All right, how are we going to possibly turn them into strengths? So a whole heap of actions around developing our weaknesses. What are we going to do with these opportunities that are coming? This is my favorite. we are going to get strategically positioned. Yes, yes, strategically positioned. That means getting in the right place, getting ready with the right skills, because opportunities will come. But if you're not strategically positioned, they'll just pass you by because you'll be over here going, oh, what was that? That looked like it might have been good for us. Oh, well, next time. All right. So get strategically positioned. This means develop your skills, your capability, your people, your research, be ready to go. Like through COVID, didn't you find there was money around? And so those organizations who are ready with projects, those that were strategically positioned, I think that they're the ones that did the best out of that. Don't know. And the threats, what are we going to do with those threats? Starts with M. It's a fancy word for risk managers. Mitigate, which means to reduce the impact of that on us. Reduce the impact or the likelihood of that occurring and impacting on our objectives, right? So each one of all those things that pop up in those boxes there through the SWOT can be turned into actions in the plan. So some things we'll be leveraging, some things we'll be developing, some things we'll be getting strategically positioned for, and some things we'll be mitigating. Yeah. So that's the way that I treat a SWOT. What about you? That's right. I give it all. I give it all that. I get the pestle out and I give it a good hammering. Yes. So that's hopefully helpful for people, getting people in the mindset of planning. There's lots we could talk about on this, but I think that they're the key things. And if you do a SWOT, it will speak to that indicator in the strategic planning standard. So that that'd be a good thing to pull out and have a go at if you don't already do that sort of thing, as well as looking at the performance data, the internal data, as well as having a look at profiling the external environment, the community, the changing needs of the community. They'll be important.
Marie, is it? I've seen people do SWOTs get completely bogged down with, like, it just becomes a laundry list. Like it becomes exhaustive, but you can't include everything in your plan. So is it worth, is prioritizing the name of the game there? That do you just like pick the big numbers?
I firstly consolidate. I firstly look for where we can group some things. So if I'm facilitating your strategic plan, we use a SWOT. Then we'll go through an activity where we group some things because there'll be some similarities and I get people to kind of make connections and group things, and then it's a bit more manageable. If we start doing that, we tend to find our goals, our key result areas. Like, you'd be surprised how it starts to emerge. And I call key result areas, those sort of parts of the business that we're going to be working on. Or you could call them strategic goals.
Yeah.
But you might pull out something that says, oh, we need to do surveys better, because they'll be, we don't know this and we don't listen to that, and we don't get a good response rate for surveys, and it'll be about community engagement, some of those things. So there starts to be a key result area around community engagement. There's often a lot of workforce stuff that comes up in the weaknesses. All right, we've got to develop our weaknesses. There's workforce stuff that's coming up, so that'd be another goal. So it starts to appear. And then what you can do with the things that you've grouped in each of those is you can actually turn them into actions. I think it doesn't matter if you have 100 projects. If you have 100 actions, I don't think it matters, because for me, a plan is something to deviate from. And as long as you're prioritizing, you're going to get to the key ones. So then it's about seeing where you're going to get most bang for your buck. Yeah. So I'll do that low-hanging fruit activity. I'll go, right, where's the cream? Where's the low-hanging fruit?
The quick wins.
stuff we want to do in year 3 because we need all that time to get ready.
Yeah.
So start prioritising then. Yeah.
Mhm.
But it's, that's a process. That's a process.
Mm.
But yeah, you're right. But it's a bloody good starting point because it's usually quite an exhaustive brainstorm.
Yeah.
I like to not miss anything. I don't care if it's all there. I think we can work with it once it's all there. But if you don't have people just participating, like if you've got disengagement and people are like, oh, yeah, whatever, then you're in trouble because you don't have people contributing their ideas about what's
Yeah.
the enablers and detractors. And
I've seen like good enthusiasm with contribution up front, but then, 25 pieces of butcher's paper and people going, now what? Like we've got this big
That's right.
list, and that's where the overwhelm hits, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, but grouping, people are good
Yeah.
at grouping. Like if we say, oh, we want to do this before lunch, let's use the next hour to group. You see people, they'll go for it. They don't want to be
Yeah.
kept back from lunch.
No. Timing's everything.
Structure it. That's right. Let's get your dots out and, do all that. We're going to end up with one piece of paper and 5 goals. And you'll see people, they will rise to the bar if you tell them where the bar is. Yeah. I've seen it happen. Yeah, it's good.
When we've just done our SWOT as our WCS board, and a lot of the weaknesses that came out were environmental things that we have no control over or little control over. So how would we develop our responses to those? Like we are trying to do advocacy and stuff like that, but I don't know, is it okay to identify that there are weaknesses that we're going to have to live with almost, you know what I mean? And
well, if they're outside of your control, I'll just challenge you to say it sounds like they're external.
right.
The origin of that sounds like it's external.
So they would be more a threat. So you just do the mitigation. Okay, right, yeah, okay.
So they might end up in your risk plan.
Yeah.
Because they are risks, aren't they? If you've got very little control over them, these are risks to your organisation. So they should be mitigated in a risk plan.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I think some of the things that we identified, in terms of our funding, the weak spots. But yeah, you're right. It's probably more of a threat than a.
Yeah, it is. It's a risk, and it should be mitigated with some good controls in the risk plan. Yeah.
Me doing the lotto.
Yeah, there you go. Put that down as a strategy.
Plan? It's not a strong one, but it's a plan.
Right. It's plan. It won't bear fruit though. I'm just saying it won't bear fruit.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. So that's the reason to maybe have another look at some of the things in the SWOT and move them into the external.
I'm gonna do that. Yeah. Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, documenting the framework. You can approach this in many ways. I think I might share with you one of the resources that we've developed for a small, they'd be a small organisation, but you could use this for any sized organisation, I think, and it starts to visualise the framework in a way that sort of people can see their relationships with it. So I think it does an okay job of even identifying the different plans and when and how they get developed. I will share this with you. Sorry, just got to get that up there. There we go. And this is a nice sort of place to start. You can make it look a lot more attractive than this if you had some good skills. But it shows a connection with the purpose and the objectives of the organisation. And then it's got a 3-year strategic plan. It's got the interrelationship between the risk plan and the business continuity plan. It's got an annual operation plan. So they actually do this, I designed this little drawing from them telling me how they do their planning. So where are things connected, and then they've got their budget there and they've got individual work plans. which are developed with the staff. The staff have little projects where they connect with some of the goals in the operational plan as a project. So you can have as much detail in here as you want, but I think to show it visually and show the interrelationships and alignment between the plans. The other resource I wanted to just show you today is the one where we've got the strategic plan and the operational plan in one, and we have a bit of a reporting framework around that. So let me take a moment just to bring that one up for you. And this is one we did for the same organisation. And, you know, we just didn't want them having these big text-heavy sort of documents that didn't have a purpose, like, because people don't really read them. They're not sitting around reading them. But, you know, if they're specific enough, they should really guide the sort of projects, planning, decision-making in the organisation. So I think we kind of got there for this organisation. I'll just stop for a minute and make sure I'm sharing the right document. This one here. So all the things that you would expect to see in a strategic plan are all there. They did a pretty good job on their situation analysis. Like, they really, all that data that all the things that they wanted to consider in their planning, they have there in chapter 3. And then if we go down to have a look at their strategic goals, oops, come on. We really focused in on performance measures for them, because this is really how the coordinator will be evaluated, how her performance will be reviewed. So we had to have some very, very specific measures against each of the actions here. So we just have some actions and performance measures. How many focus areas did they end up having? 8 focus areas. And then down here, they've taken each of those actions, so from above, and turned them into the things that they're going to do in it, you know, in that year. So I said to this coordinator, give yourself a quarterly kind of approach to those actions. So pull out the actions that you want to do in year 1 and put them into this operational plan. So this will be the year 1 operational plan. So she's pulled out the things from above that she wants to do in year 1, and she's given it a quarterly time frame there in the time frame column. So you can see the alignment with each of the focus areas. And then down here, we've given her a little bit of a reporting template. So she reports to the board how she's going with the performance measures, and she puts a little bit of commentary in there. But it's mostly a sort of a dashboard or traffic light kind of approach to letting the board know how she's going. So then she just does that each quarter. Okay, so that's we've also put into the resources some sample strategic plans and action plans and a planning policy and procedure as well, because we're nice, because we like you. How's that feeling? How's that feeling? And Lisa will help us by uploading the recording and the resources in the days to come. In the days to come, we like to say, and she'll send you a link to let you know that that's been done. So jump in there and have a look at some of those useful things. Questions, comments? Enthusiasm for planning.
Yeah, it's interesting because we had a bit of a gap in between our board being able to meet due to COVID and various other bits and bobs to revise our strategic plan. So being proficient, we'd already done our ops plan in January, and our board didn't meet till yesterday. So yeah, I'm just wondering now, I guess I'm going to have to retrofit, which feels a bit weird. So yeah, I don't know.
No,
I think that comes though from what you're saying is that it's not a static document. So what Marie said, just because your strategic plan is printed, that doesn't mean that it's not a living document. So what I get to see all manner of examples of this, but the checking in between those two plans and are we still on track, and is the operational plan supporting those objectives, and how is it doing that, or has something massive happened? Because nothing massive has happened in the last 2.5 years. It's all been sailing. We haven't had any glitches. Is do we need to look at that again? So, you know, as Marie said, just because it's in print doesn't mean that it can't be changed or adjusted or reviewed 6 monthly to go. That's really unrealistic at this point in time, given our resource issues or pandemic or whatever. And we're just going to make a note in the board minutes that we're going to park that for a while, and we might carry that over into our next planning period.
Yeah, you've gone through a period of operational focus. All right. And so if you minuted in the board meeting minutes, just as Lisa said there, that we just are shelving the strategy for 12 months and we are focusing on operational priorities, then we would need to see that you had a fairly robust operational plan of attack, you know, for all of that there.
Yeah.
What a lot of boards have done is that they've gone back and they've developed a shorter plan. So they've developed a 2-year strategic plan or even a 1-year strategic plan. So yeah, I think it's just about being proactive in how you are guiding the organisation. These are top level guiding documents in an organisation. So they need to be fairly current.
Yeah. I mean, that was the major issue that they identified as well, was that it's just such a movable feast at the moment. We've just recently had a really massive announcement into domestic and family violence services funding. But we're being drip fed information from government as to what it looks like in the different stages that they're launching. So we're worried that things will change between the 3 tranches. I mean, we'll have to adjust. Yeah, so it's just really, really tricky. And then we've got all these external factors like, you know, the construction industry having really serious problems with supplier import of materials and, you know, actual workers to be able to do the work. So we can have a you know, a really clear direction of where we want to go, but whether we can achieve it within the government is probably not.
No, that's right. So think about, in that kind of volatility and uncertainty, complexity, blah, 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 what are the sorts of things that we need to be good at? Right? So that's where your strategic focus can be. So we need to be good at quickly changing our plans, or we need to have our partnerships established and kind of ready to go on these bigger projects. You're talking about core and cluster maybe?
Yeah, that's right.
So you're going to have your tier 1 and 2, I think, providers. You're going to have those relationships nice and solid. So that's a strategic action that you could start working on. For example, shorter term plans, you know, all the things that set you up well. Communication, like where you've got all that kind of environment going on, then really honing in on improving your internal communication or communication with your stakeholders. Like that's one thing that usually when there's a lot of uncertainty and complexity around, people want information. They have a feeling like, oh, there's stuff we don't know, and they know we don't know, and it can set up kind of issues with relationships. So, you know, even focusing on better communication is a good strategic action. But yeah, partnerships and flexible sorts of agreements and get out clauses and, you know, all those things that, and putting a bit more you know, budgeting for contingencies, which we might not have put as much in our budgets before, and having a process to manage variations to funding agreements. You know, all those things that you know are going to be part of that uncertain environment can now form part of maybe a 2-year strategic plan instead of a 5-year strategic plan. It just seems ridiculous to me, a 5-year strategic plan in the
Yeah,
current
they've
environment.
gone for a 3-year.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, we are. I mean, a lot of what you were talking through today, I feel like they're really on top of in terms of being ready to go, being strategically positioned, and we are communicating really effectively with all of our community housing providers and our internal stakeholders. Mainly because, you know, we just everything changes every 5 minutes. Like, oh, right, we've had a bit more information. Here you go.
Yeah, that's right. But imagine if you hadn't planned to build the capability of a position that can keep abreast of what's happening in the external environment. Imagine if you had a person whose job that was, who was overwhelmed and couldn't do it. Right, because I know that you're waiting on answers to certain little things about how to proceed with those tranches. And imagine if you didn't have anyone who had the capacity and capability to keep an eye on that.
Yes, that's true.
You know, so that's something to strategically build into your workforce plan, for example. You know, you're going to have a bit more of an external focus for a while because that's where it's happening. Yeah, it's exciting. But see, risks and opportunities. Oh, there's all this money coming. Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Get ready. Get ready. Yeah. I have to go fishing now. Yes, apparently the whiting are running in the channel. So I'm off. I'm at Southwest Rocks and
You allowed to eat them for your supper?
Say again?
Are you allowed to eat them for your supper?
Yes. I have a relationship between I can see them caught, but I can't see them killed, but I can eat them. So I've got this. Yeah, it's weird. Someone else is catching them. My mate Shane's here, so he's gonna do some fishing, and I need to go and help.
And what, you cook them, do you?
I cook them.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
And then I go. Not a lovely thing to do with an afternoon. I hope you've got something lovely to do as well. I'm going to stop recording now because it's starting to talk about fish.